always surprising, and he has an appeal that continues to cut across generations and nationalities. For Europeans, he's the most famous of Canadians. On his latest concert tour, 5% of the population of Iceland gathered to hear him in one place. His song, Suzanne, is known by millions. His most recent album, I'm Your Man, has garnered him a huge new audience and renewed fame. But he is always Leonard.
I don't like your fashion business, mister. And I don't like these drugs that keep you thin. I don't like what happened to my sister. First, we take Manhattan. Then we take Berlin.
First we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. In fact, for Leonard Cohen, it was the other way around. He's always been a bigger star in Europe than in North America. But on his way to sell out crowds at Carnegie Hall, Leonard Cohen finds his career now revitalized closer to home by this song, the surprise hit on last year's pop charts.
We take Manhattan. Then we take Berlin.
Says that he's shameless in his pursuit of women. His former publisher calls him the most Christ-like figure he's ever met. His songs have been praised as brilliant and then dismissed as music to slit your wrists by. His own record company labeled him the chronicler of despair. One fan said that he looks on stage like a turtle.
Remember me? I used to live for music. Remember me? I brought your groceries in. Well, it's for those days everybody's wounded. But we take Manhattan. Then we take Berlin.
Leonard still leads a gypsy life. Home has long been a succession of hotel rooms and tour buses. He owns a house in Montreal, an apartment in Los Angeles and Paris, and a refuge on the island of Hydra in Greece. But in the past 10 years, he's never spent more than 2 months in any one place.
Yeah, I'll have miso kilo Elias, marvelous Elias.
Still, this is a neighborhood he feels comfortable in. East End Montreal, once the Jewish ghetto, and now a patchwork of immigrants in which Leonard's brand of displaced nationality can make itself at home. He's been shopping here since the early 60s, when the National Film Board first introduced Canadians to a brash, irreverent, and very self-confident young poet.
In my journey, I know I am somewhere beyond the traveling pack of poets. I will remain here until I am sure what I am leaving. During the day I laugh, and during the night I sleep. My favorite cooks prepare my meals, my body cleans and repairs itself, and all my work goes well.
He was not destined for this particular journey. His family had prospered in the clothing business, and Leonard was brought up in a comfortable, upper-middle-class Jewish home in Westmount. he never wanted for anything. His mother warned him about life outside. People steal and cheat, she said. But he was innocent of those things until the age of 33, when he was robbed and cheated, and finally learned what people are willing to do for money. At the time he left home, he had an allowance of $750 a year and a persistent need, a compulsion to write. He wanted to be the voice of his generation.
The other time I was in quarters such as these was in the Verdun Mental Hospital, Montreal. I was visiting a friend. He was on a top floor. It had been a hot afternoon, and I had removed my jacket, as I am wont to do. I had left it with my friend, who, though mentally ill, was no thief. I suspect he wasn't even mentally ill. He was doing this instead of college.
At 54, Leonard is enjoying his middle ages. Old ladies give him their seat on the bus, and yet young women still flock to his door. He has set the style for an entire generation of would-be poets, and has, in fact, won his early goal, to become the voice of his generation.
I eat when I'm hungry, I drink when I'm dry. If the whiskey don't kill me, I'll live till I die. This is Parc de Portugal. I've been here about 20 years. And that's my house, my gray house. And this is the lonely life of the neighborhood genius.
Leonard's house is sparse without decoration. The walls are pale gray with white trim. There are no pictures or photographs hanging. The furniture is minimal, but what little there is carefully arranged. At home, as on stage, Leonard dresses daily in shades from gray to black. One suspects that he comes here from time to time and that his suitcases are never fully unpacked upstairs. But here, he says, he has everything that he needs and nothing that he doesn't need. The uncluttered surroundings allow him to concentrate his thoughts on what he calls his reports from the interior landscape.
Cena!
Taking off repair. Released from the hospital.
For all the love poetry and his unshakable belief in the institution of marriage, Leonard lives alone. 2 children and a woman he used to call his wife live in Paris. He has many good friends and a few close ones living nearby. He is self-sufficient. His routine is important to him. Leonard now has an addition to his daily rounds of shopping, wandering, writing, puttering, and doodling on his computer. He is pulling together a new anthology of his work, and for the first time, excerpts from his novels and his songs will be entered alongside the poetry.
Okay, here it goes. This might be the cover. This is based on a photograph of Dominique Isserman. But it's not a bad idea. I've got to put down the Stranger song. It's true that...
You can't make a living just writing poetry in Canada, and I don't think Leonard has ever expected to make a living out of his poetry. Most poets survive through Canada Council grants, through teaching positions in universities, all kinds of things to make do. And Leonard chose the route of being a troubadour.
It's true that all the men you knew were dealers who said they were through with dealing every time you gave them shelter. I know that kind of man. It's hard to hold the hand of anyone who's reaching for the sky just to surrender. Who is reaching for the sky just to surrender.
I remember the first time he ever sang on national television. It was on Take 30, and I was the host of the program then. It was 1966, and it was the Stranger song.
Like any dealer, he was watching for the card that is so high and wild, he'll never need to deal another. He was just some Joseph looking for a manger.
It was very beautiful, and his voice sounded like nobody else's voice. This is before the days of Bob Dylan. It was unusual, it was intriguing, and we thought it was perhaps a fad.
I told you when I came I was a stranger. But now another stranger seems to want you to ignore his dreams as though they were the burden of another. You've seen that man before, his golden arm dispatching cards. Now it's rusted from the elbow to the finger. And he wants to trade the game he plays for shelter. Yes, he wants to trade the game he knows for shelter.
If we sold 400 books of poetry in Canada, we considered ourselves to be well on our way to immortality. But I couldn't pay my rent. In hindsight, it seems like a mad decision that I was going to rectify my economic situation by becoming a singer. I didn't know who Dylan was, or Joan Baez, or Judy Collins. And on the way down to Nashville, I got ambushed in New York by this whole phenomenon.
Now Suzanne takes you down to a place near the river. You can hear the boats go by. You can spend the night beside her. And you know, she's half crazy. That's why you wanna be there. And she feeds you tea and oranges that come all the way from China. And just when you mean to tell her that you have no love to give her, she gets you on her wavelength. She lets the river answer.
Leonard, of course, was not recording when I first met him. He had just started to, in fact, he didn't think of himself as a singer. Quite the contrary. He was very shaken up when I suggested that he should sing, because I heard him as a singer immediately. I heard this charming quality that was very musical. And so I twisted his arm and invited him quite forcefully to come on and sing on a show with me. And he came out, and he stood in the middle there and began singing the song. And I knew that he was shaking like a leaf because I had seen his hands on the guitar. And he got about halfway through the first verse and he stopped and dropped his hands to his side and said, "I can't go on," and turned and walked off the stage. And everybody went crazy. They loved it. You know, it was very avant-garde to do that.
And you want to travel with her, you want to travel blind, and you know she will trust you, for you've touched her perfect body with her mind. That's a good song. It's a good song. Seems to have lasted. But to place a song into the air and have it last 20 years it's a wonderful feeling, because that's what a song is. It means it's true.
It is a cold March day in Montreal. Leonard's editor and publisher has arrived from McClelland and Stewart to work with him on the anthology, due for publication in the fall and already behind schedule. Leonard and I had been talking for some time via long-distance telephone, via letter, about working on the collected poetry. And I knew that he wasn't going to get right down to it. And then one day he called me, and we decided that it was time for us to start working together. We're going to come to some kind of compromise about what should go in and what should stay out. I've got the songs, and I'll put them at the end, so we'll... Well, I think that poem works. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's good to start with that. Well,
yeah.
You know, as I was saying to you, I had an idea of a short list, a long list, and a complete list.
Yeah.
And the short list would have 163 poems, and they would be really the very, very best poems. And the complete list would be about 270, which would be everything that isn't really shameful, you know, isn't really disgraceful.
Everything that isn't embarrassing.
Everything that isn't embarrassing, yeah.
You want to call it that? Everything that isn't embarrassing?
As the title of the book?
Mm-hmm.
I thought the title, a good title might be A New Selection.
Well, I don't like a new selection, but I love the photo. I think the photo works.
I like A New Selection.
I like, you know, everything that isn't embarrassing, or Saved from the Fire. I'm not kidding you. You're looking at me as though I'm kidding you, and I'm not kidding you.
I think you're kidding.
No, I'm not. Everything that isn't embarrassing really strikes a chord with people.
But in the long list, there's a lot of stuff that is embarrassing.
Well, I could disagree with that. But I want you to read it to me because I have a question in it. And it's an editing question, so I want to hear... The choice of what goes into a collected works is up to the author, and also up to somebody who works with him as his editor. What is interesting about Leonard's work is that the personality is so clear through it. There is a certain voice that is speaking through Leonard's poetry. It's the same voice that sings, "First we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin," that was evident right at the very beginning.
Leonard Cohen, take one.
Okay, Leonard, we start. Any place you come across a dirty word, we have to delete it.
Yeah, well, there are no dirty words, ever.
Poem. I heard of a man who says words so beautifully that if he only speaks their name, women give themselves to him.
Oh.
If I am dumb beside your body, while silence blossoms like tumors on our lips, it is because I hear a man climb stairs and clear his throat outside our door.
I think I had a really stronger Canadian accent in those days, huh?
Well, you had a stronger Canadian accent. You were younger. You were more formal. I mean, you had a formal idea of what a poet was. A declamatory poet.
Sure.
Sometimes innocent, too.
Very innocent. Very innocent, yeah.
You weren't robbed and beaten up yet.
Confident.
Terribly confident. You can only be confident like that when you're young.
As Irving Layton says, the two characteristics essential for a young poet, arrogance and inexperience.
When did you start writing poetry? I mean, you say you wrote that when you were 15 or 17.
I started writing when I started collecting folk songs, playing guitar. I got very interested in the lyrics. Lyrics to songs that I loved. That's where the first idea of language. And in the synagogue, too, it was the same thing. It was, you know, the language of the songs, of the chants, touched me. I think it was the Spanish poems like Paso Rio, Paso Fuentes. You know, I pass rivers, I pass streams. I see you bathing in the waters. And I say, do not drink of these waters, for your eyes have poisoned them. Things like that, you know, that very beautiful Spanish lyric I loved very much.
One thing I want to talk about is Lorca. How important was he to you?
Well, I named my daughter Lorca, so he must have been pretty important to me. It seemed to be the first poet that touched me, even though they were in translation.
But then Take This Waltz as a kind of translation of one of his books.
Yes. I spent a long time on that. I think I've got one of the many notebooks. It's just, these are telephone numbers.
Flowers.
That's sort of what I was feeling like while I was writing it. These are all versions of the first verse. Still. I think this whole thing is the first verse.
10 women, 10 little girls, 10 pretty
Now
ladies.
in Vienna, there's 10 pretty women. There's a shoulder where death comes to cry. There's a lobby with 900 windows. There's a tree where the doves go to die. There's a piece that was torn from the morning. Yes, and it hangs in the gallery of frost. Aye. Take this waltz, take this waltz. Take this waltz with the clamp on its jaw. I want you, I want you, I want you on a chair with a dead magazine in the cave at the tip of
That's interesting. And it became a huge hit in Spain. It's on the top of the charts.
Yes, it was. I think it was number 3.
But
They liked the song very much in Spain. And the whole audiences would often sing that I part.
But it wasn't played very much here. Do you have any bitterness about that? You know?
No, I mean, I've had outrageous good luck.
You know.
Commercial radio has never accepted my work here. But there's always been an audience somewhere in the world where the songs have been accepted. I've always been able to make a living out of doing it. It followed my original idea about what making a living was about, which is that I don't want to work for pay, but I want to be paid for my work. And I'll dance with you in Vienna. I'll be wearing a river's disguise. The hyacinth wine on my shoulder, my mouth on the dew of your thigh. And I'll bury my soul in a scrapbook with the photographs there and the moths. And I'll yield to the flood of your beauty, my cheap violin and my cross. And you'll carry me down on your dancing to the pools that you lift on your wrist. Oh, my love, oh, my love, take this waltz, take this waltz. It's yours now, it's all that there is.
take Leonard Cohen for granted in Canada, part of our bleak landscape that won't go away, no matter how hard we try to imagine ourselves basking in warmth and sun. In Europe, however, he's a true international star, the favorite singer of 2 French presidents. His concert tour last summer was virtually sold out in 53 cities from Norway to Greece. He's often asked why audiences in Europe are so receptive, and he replies, "It's because no one here understands the words." But in fact, many audiences here have his lyrics memorized.
When they poured across the border, I was cautioned to surrender. This I could not do. I took my gun and I abandoned.
They've only got one thing written in English here. But they have a picture of the band on the program.
Greece is a second home for Leonard. He used his first Canada Council grant some 30 years ago to buy himself a small house on the island of Hydra, a short ferry ride from Athens. Envious Canadians imagined that he was taking a holiday at public expense, but here were passed 6 of his most productive years. He was not alone. In Athens, he had met Marianne, a Norwegian woman who enveloped his life with the same sensual warmth as the Mediterranean Sea. She came to share his house with him in Hydra.
I haven't really lived here in 15 years, and I haven't been here in 4. The will to return is ebbing. I've had a few different families here. I have to repaint it every so often. We'll freshen up a bit, start over. That was a lovely table on the back of Songs from a Room. You should sit at that table. That was Mariana was sitting there.
You should sit here.
That was lovely, yeah.
At history.
What's in these drawers?
Look.
These drawers belong here.
Uh-oh. Oh, pictures. Look.
Well, there's mail here.
No, you don't look like you are on speed.
Well, these are late. These are very late. I have to look through all
Do you
this.
play the harmonica, Leonard?
Yes, I do.
Oh, please play for us.
I just got off here, and somebody spoke English, and I rented a house for $14 a month. I met a girl, and I stayed for 8 or 10 years. Yeah, that's the way it was in those days.
Won't you come over to the window, my little darling? I'd like to try to read your palm. I used to think I was some kind of gypsy boy before I let you take me home so long. Marianne, it's time that we began to laugh and cry and cry and laugh about it all again.
Is that Marianne there?
That's Marianne.
Very Norwegian looking.
Yeah, oh, she's a beautiful woman now. I guess that was taken when she was 25 years old. She's my age now, she's 54.
Are women always an inspiration to your writing? There's a female figure always in the writing.
I'm terrified to talk about women today.
Why?
Well, the politics, sexual, romantic politics.
Forget that.
Have become so
Forget
polarized.
that.
But of course, the woman in one's life is the most important element, and woman is the content of a man's life, and man is the content of a woman's life. That's all we're doing. It seems to be what we're here for. So that I'm not unique in this respect. I mean, every man is involved in writing a love song to the woman he's with, and every woman is involved in writing a love song to the man she's with. That's all we're doing. That's all the whole affair is about. It is the only game in town.
I guess that's why people respond so well to the poetry and to the songs. But you know, as long as I've known you, you've really always been alone.
That's true.
So how important is love? How important are relationships if you're always alone?
Yeah. Yeah, my old teacher said, the older you become, the lonelier you get, and the deeper love you need.
Well, you said, though, also that love is a point of reference.
Well, I think that you need a tight connection in your life. You need a tight connection with somebody else. And that is an emotional reference.
They don't have to be around, though, all the time.
No, they don't have to be around all the time. But it's nice if they're around some of the time.
Okay.
I remember you well in the Chelsea Hotel. You were talking so brave and so sweet, giving me head on the unmade bed, while the limousine waited in the street. And those were the reasons, and that was New York. We were running for the money in the flesh, and that was called love. For the workers in song probably still is, for those of them left. Ah, but you got away, didn't you, baby? Ah, you just threw it all to the ground. You got away, I never once heard you say, I need you, I don't need you, I need you, I don't need you, and all of that jiving around. I don't mean to suggest that I loved you the best. I don't keep track of each fallen robin. I remember you well in the Chelsea Hotel. That's all, my little darling. I don't even think of you that often.
You know, when you've got Death of a Ladies' Man, which was singular, and then they had this album, Death of a Ladies' Man, which is the plural, the classic Ladies' Man, Lady Killer kind of thing. How did you feel about the album?
Oh, the album is a disaster. The songs are good, but Tina Turner should have sung it, or Bill Medley. I didn't know how to sing those songs. I think I could maybe sing them today, but I certainly didn't know how to sing them then. And working with Phil Spector was a little tricky. Those were mostly first takes. But he would confiscate the tapes at the end of every day under armed guard. He had bodyguards. So when it came to mix them, he mixed the thing in secret, and you know, I had the option of hiring my own private army and fighting him out on Sunset Boulevard. But I decided to let it go.
But Memories is nice in that.
Frankie Lane was singing Jezebel. I pinned an iron cross to my lapel. I walked up to the tallest and the blondest girl. I said, "You don't know me now, but very soon you will. So won't you let me see, won't you let me see, won't you let me see your naked body?" So won't you let me see? I said, won't you let me see? I said, won't you let me see? Your naked body. That was a sweet little song. It was a really sweet little song.
I like the Frankie Lane mention. That's a plus for me.
Mule Train.
I Believe. Do you think he could have...
Swamp Girl.
I don't remember Swamp Girl.
Black Lace. Lady, beware every time that you wear lace. Black lace.
I'm looking for The Only Tourist in Havana.
No, that's in...
Flowers for Hitler.
Flowers for Hitler.
Did you write that in Havana? Did you go to the Bay of Pigs?
Well, I went down to Cuba in 1961, just before the Bay of Pigs. I was in Cuba during
That just
the
happened.
invasion. Yeah. But Castro had been making speeches saying that he was going to be invaded. I thought that he was going to be invaded. So I went down there in early, it was the spring of '61. So this is called The Only Tourist in Havana Turns His Thoughts Homeward. This is April 1961. Come, my brothers,
let us govern Canada. Let us find our serious heads. Let us dump asbestos on the White House. Let us make the French talk English, not only here, but everywhere. Let us torture the Senate individually until they confess. Let us purge the new party. Let us encourage the dark races so they'll be lenient when they take over. Let us have 2 governor generals at the same time. Let us have another official language. Let us determine what it will be. Let us give a Canada Council Fellowship to the most original suggestion. Let us teach sex in the home to parents. Let us threaten to join the USA and pull out at the last moment. My brothers, come. Our serious heads are waiting for us somewhere, like Gladstone bags abandoned after a coup d'etat. Let us put them on very quickly. Let us maintain a stony silence on the St. Lawrence Seaway. Well, I don't think the poem holds up.
But it's very funny.
Poem, but it was funny.
Sort of like
It
a
was funny
stand-up
at the time.
routine. Did you ever want to
Yeah.
be a stand-up comic?
No,
No.
I never wanted to be one, but I admire the métier.
There's a lot of humor in some of the early stuff, and then there's a lot of real darkness. You know, there's a kind of dark passage in some of the poetry, starting probably from Energy of Slaves into some of the songs.
Energy of Slaves is very raw, that book.
It's a sort of tortured picture of you on the front of it, eh? Is that the same picture? You know, the one with your head shape that's on the album cover?
Yes, that's on the back of Live Song.
You look like you're being taken for a side and front shot of
I was in good
convict.
shape, huh, in those days, God.
You got your head shaved.
Oh, yeah.
Why'd you have your head shaved?
Well, I had been in a monastery for a while, and I had shaved my head. And then I'd gone over the wall and met my girlfriend in Acapulco.
Well, that's the story of Leonard. You go into something and out the other side, always. You break right through, don't you? Doesn't matter if it's brick or stone.
That picture was taken in a bathroom in Acapulco.
After you'd broken out.
Yeah.
You know, on all your covers, you move differently. I mean, first of all, there's the sort of warm, young, romantic poet, ingratiating, etc. Then it moves to this rather hard look, then to the world-weary. What do you want to leave as an image?
I never had a strategy about imagery. I always tried to choose the picture of the man that was singing the songs. I generally would never take a photograph specifically for an album cover, or I wouldn't go to anyone else. This particular album cover, various positions, which
Yeah, I like that.
which I did in the Royalton Hotel in New York City with a Polaroid camera. I took about 100 or 150.
I like that. That record album never came out in the States, did it?
No, Columbia Records refused to put it out.
Why?
At a certain point. I don't know. They at that point, nobody thought, nobody in the New York company thought that the songs or, you know, I think they thought it was all over for me.
Did you think ever that it was all over for you as a singer?
I certainly saw that that the American record company had made some kind of decision that I was a marginal singer and becoming more and more marginal as I aged. So I walked into Mr. Walter Yetnikov's office. He's the president or chairman of the board of CBS in New York, and he said, "Oh, the poet from the North." And I played him the song, Dance Me to the End of Love. He said, "I don't like the mix." I said, "You mix it, Mr. Yetnikov, you know. If that's what's going to stop you putting out the record, you know, you just mix it and put it out." And he said, "Look, Leonard, we know you're great, but we don't know if you're any good. And we're interested in tonnage." So I appreciated that kind of frankness, and there's something very refreshing about dealing with these very big companies. You know, if you're selling records, there's a bottle of brandy in your hotel room, and there's a car waiting for you, and if you aren't, they don't answer your telephone calls. Well, I was in a situation then when they were not answering my telephone calls. That's why I had to bring the record in physically and try to play it for them.
Dance me to your beauty with a burning violin. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered safely in. Lift me like an olive branch and be my homeward dove. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love.
mother was right. It's a tough way to make a living. But Leonard Cohen is an unlikely survivor in the rough and tumble world of commercial pop, where an artist is gold one day and garbage the next. In Europe, his popularity has never waned. But in North America, his appeal has been largely to a 60s generation that cut its teeth on his lyric poetry, and his audience has declined. It took a former backup singer, Jennifer Warnes, to revitalize his career back home, and as one critic pointed out, to make his songs, if not his voice, respectable again in North America.
It's because he dares to talk about sorrow. And the Americans, you know, in general, not the Europeans, but the Americans in general like to be, keep your sunny side up, you know. Put on your smile and, like, you know, come out swinging, you know, no matter how ruined you've been. And Leonard will say, look at the shreds of my heart. I'm in shreds.
Now my friends are gone and my hair is gray. I ache in the places where I used to play. And I'm crazy for love, but I'm not coming on. I'm just paying my rent every day in the Tower of Song. I was born like this. I had no choice. I was born with the gift of a golden voice and 27 angels from the great beyond. Now they tied me to this table right here in the Tower of Song.
So I've lived in this world, so it's natural for me to construct my songs around this kind of reality with other people in Montreal. You know, I was that lonely man in a black suit with a guitar over his shoulder walking the streets of Montreal. I was that for a long time.
You're still the great lyric poet for us. And the singing, you see, to us, you're known secondarily as a singer. And that's why we buy your records. Whereas to the young, you'll be a singer first, and the poems will be the discovery. And so we've got to get those two audiences and somehow bring them together in this.
Mm-hmm. It's your job.
Leonard is still working on those poems, and we hope they'll be out by next fall.